Home computers were not always so prevalent as they are today. Take the early 1980s. Computers were still seen as a new world to explore and controlled by a niche group, mainly the intellectuals and families with kids. They were expensive and they were confusing. So it comes as no surprise that when a newcomer to the computer scene promised they would deliver a computer product that came with all of the accessories that you needed to do everything that you could possibly do with a computer, is able to pair up or already come bundled with the ColecoVision for compatibility and most importantly, sell it at a rock bottom price that was too good to be true. Remember this statement. The computer community went wild. The possibilities at that point were endless. Coleco looked to have a winning product on their hands. What could possibly go wrong? So like I stated earlier, the computer landscape was still fairly new back in the early 1980s. And expensive. Oh, they were very expensive. To give you an idea, the Apple II was around $1,400 and the HP 150 went as high as $2,700, with the Commodore 64 being around $500 or so, and was the only option coming close to the cost of the Atom. However, that was the cost of a Commodore 64 alone, which was the keyboard, which itself houses the entire C64 motherboard. You still needed to supply your own monitor, tape deck, game, word processor software, and printer if you were trying to emulate the Atom Complete package. ColecoVision had been enjoying moderate success with the release of the ColecoVision video game console back in 1982. They had managed to snag the rights to Donkey Kong from Atari, that was the big one, and bundled it with the ColecoVision to maximize its sale. It also helped that the ColecoVision was able to bring many arcade games to the home side way more accurately than the Atari 2600, the Intellivision, and even the 5200. Coleco saw the emergence of the computer scene as the next step in penetrating the common US household, and they would double down on this endeavor. At the '83 Summer CES, the company surprised the industry by announcing the Atom computer and all of the accessories needed in one single package.
One of the very first public showings of the new Coleco Atom computer. As you know, the Atom has been in the press quite a bit lately, taking some pretty hard treatment related to the delivery dates of the product, which we think is kind of unfortunate how much this has been blown out of proportion, because certainly very few personal computers have ever been delivered on time. And I think that most people really miss the point, which is that Coleco is doing a very exciting thing for consumers in providing a very substantial product at a very nominal price.
Atari and Commodore saw this presentation and took no chances, creating and marketing similar bundles with their computers later in the year. The Atom computer was a dream come true for computer enthusiasts and even the non-PC crowd back then. It brought the Atom computer system, a tape deck that was made to use with what Coleco called digital data packs, a daisy wheel printer, the standalone keyboard, 2 digital data packs for Smart Basic software, a word processor software called Smart Writer, and a copy of Buck Rogers' Planet of Zoom. Coleco stated that they would include all of this for just $525, adjusted today for inflation as of 2024, and you're talking about $1,600. So on top of the fact that it was the cheapest option, it also kept you from having to hunt down all of the stuff on your own. Because back then, you either had to find a specialized computer store or a regular one like a Sears or a JCPenney that would carry the Atom. Everything sounded great so far, but after the announcement of the Atom, however, it all started going downhill. First was the delays in getting the product out to the market and retailers. Coleco executives had promised 500,000 units to be shipped out by Christmas of 1983. As Coleco failed to deliver on multiple dates to suppliers, rumors started to make the rounds, and not the good type. Retailers and distributors were hearing about quality control issues with the computers, as well as design issues, which I will get into more detail as the video goes on. On top of that, now the actual cost to build the units and manufacture the needed parts exceeded estimates. Without the Coleco Atom even hitting store shelves, the company sent out word that the price of the bundle will be raised from $525 to $725. Although some documentation online says $600, with retailers deciding the final cost since Coleco themselves never said a suggested retail price. But regardless, it was still a great price for everything that was being promised. But with delays after delays and now a price hike of $200 added to it all, it was not a good look for Coleco as the holidays inched closer. It was finally released in October of 1983.
Our son goes to camp,
Fascinating.
and you take over his computer.
Incredible.
Now, command the powers of Atom, the power of a complete computer system, all in one package.
How about writing the kid a letter?
A letter? We'll use Atom.
A computer?
Atom, an electronic typewriter with built-in word processing program. So simple you can start using him right away.
Adam's asking me a question.
So answer it and write.
Oh, we computed it.
Command the powers of Atom and program your future.
However, Coleco did not make public the amounts of units shipped out to retailers at first. But stores such as JCPenney and Kmart had problems getting units in stock and ultimately decided to stop selling them at the stores by November of that same year. Despite the delays and small price hike, consumer interest was still high, but Coleco could not keep up with demand, even though it was not overwhelming. The little amount of units that did make it to consumers, well, this is where it gets worse. But first, before we dive into the dumpster fire that is the Atom computer, let's go over some of the basics. So the unit specs were great for that time. You had a Z80 CPU running at 3.58 MHz, the same that will be used on the Master System. It had 80 kilobytes of RAM, 64 of them being available for use, and was supposed to be able to go up to 144 kilobytes in the future. The unit could be connected to a TV via RF output and could even be used with composite connections if you had the cable and TV input to take advantage of it. It could display up to 16 colors on screen with a resolution of 256 by 192. There is no operating system for the Atom. It loads the word processor called Smart Writer as soon as the unit is powered up, with no need to load the software as other computers of that time. This was done on purpose as Coleco saw the Atom as a computer for everyone and wanted to keep things easier and streamlined, so they decided to keep the word processor software stored on ROM versus Smart Basic. And frankly, you would really have to be hardcore to use Basic.
Can we get that on the screen now? Okay. By the way, to take our Basic is about 12K bytes. It took about 12 seconds to load and come up. That's pretty fast.
Kill me please. Kill me now. The main unit came with a port on the top to insert ColecoVision cards without any need whatsoever to buy additional modules. The inside compartment had two motherboards, one for the ColecoVision and one for the Atom, both connected via a ribbon that you see right here. It also came packaged with a tape drive to replace the need for a floppy disk drive, which were a little bit expensive at the time. These were not regular tapes either. They were specifically made for the Atom to withstand the very fast read and write and rewind functions of the deck. It also had an empty slot to add an additional deck at a future time. It also came with a keyboard that by all indications was a pretty solid one for the time. The Daisy printer that it came with could print out only text, no graphics. And it was called a Daisy wheel since it looks just like this, and it turned until it got to the letter needed and punched it to the paper. It was loud, it was slow, but it offered good quality versus a common dot matrix printer of the time.
Shortest route to the next character. Now, as soon as Mary finishes, or the Atom actually finishes this, what we're going to do is show you how we can set the margins and retype the same text using new margin spacing.
Now here's where one of the biggest problems with this computer comes in. The printer is the power supply of the unit. Yep, you heard that right. In its very most basic, simplest explanation, if you don't have the printer, or if the printer malfunctions in any way whatsoever, the whole unit would not function. Now imagine for a second that your entire computer, and whether it turns on, is based on a peripheral attached to your computer, not the computer itself. How stupid is that? More and more consumers were returning Atom computers to retailers for issues with the printer and the tape deck, which itself was more likely to break than the printer. Yet Coleco would continue to deny any major quality issues with the Atom, stating time and again that the defective ratio was on par or below the computer industry standard. That might have held true had Coleco been able to ship out the amount of units they had promised, but they could only muster a paltry 95,000 units versus the 500,000 by Christmas time. But even if your printer and tape deck had not given you any issues whatsoever, and you thought that you were spared, oh man, do I have a surprise for you. It seems that the power supply encased in the unit did not have the proper shielding, and upon turning the unit on, it would emit such a powerful electromagnetic burst that if you had DDPs inside the drive or even near it when you turn the unit on, it would seriously degrade the content of the digital data pack, possibly to the point of erasing it or making the contents unreadable. And if you were lucky not to deal with any of those problems, sometimes the tape drives would just come defective from the factory, either not working or having loose parts or springs inside. The software was also an issue, since they had some of the worst documentation that you could possibly come up with. If this computer bundle was made for the masses to make the transition to computers easier, then not providing proper documents and manuals for Smart Basic, as an example, was a huge misstep from Coleco. There was also that glitch where it would get stuck on typewriter mode, and in order to switch to Smart Writer, you had to reboot the entire system, which meant turning it off and then back on. Not a problem, right? Well, with the previous issue I mentioned regarding the EM burst when turning the unit on, that is something that did not help if you needed to turn it off and back on more often than needed. Consumer confidence in the Coleco brand had taken a huge hit by the beginning of 1984. Retailers were reporting that a huge percentage of Coleco items bought were being returned for multiple issues, ranging from the printer to issues with the tape deck to software issues from defective digital data packs. It is not known exactly how much Coleco lost in 1983, but as Atom returns mounted, the company scrambled to get ahead of the game with aggressive advertising, price cuts, and advertising scholarships with the purchase of the Atom, as well as promising new hardware accessories such as the Super Game Module that was supposed to add additional RAM and spruce up the graphics so games could look closer to their arcade counterparts, a 1200 baud modem, and the very coveted 3.25 floppy drive. As I did the research for this video and read more and more on the Atom computer, the more I realized that it was responsible for the ColecoVision brand to tank, not the video game crash, at least not by itself. It contributed, but it was not the sole reason. Had Coleco waited one more year to properly do quality control as opposed to rushing things out the door, which is probably what executives had wanted, and maybe the Atom would have had a better story. It would also have helped had the printer been sold separately and packaged the floppy drive with the computer as opposed to the digital data packs, which tended to have problems of their own. The Atom Module 3 might have sounded like a good idea, but all it did was connect to the ColecoVision, making it an Atom computer. You see the problem here? It makes it into an Atom computer. That's like saying, oh hey, let me connect my PS5 to an Ouya so I can make... You know what? Let me not finish that phrase. I could go to jail. So you hook up your successful ColecoVision to this thing right here, and you now have a whole slew of issues just knocking at your door. Where before, you just had a ColecoVision, and you were having fun. Why would you do that? Look, don't get me wrong, I like the concept of bringing the computer to the masses by including everything in one big, oh man, and I mean a big box. This box weighed around 30 pounds from what I have read. It was a great idea, no doubt about it. It was aimed at the non-computer crowd, which was bigger than the small and secluded PC enthusiasts. So from a business standpoint, it was a smart move. Had the Atom been properly manufactured, it was a computer with a built-in ColecoVision. It was a novel idea, but it was rushed out to the market trying to hit the magical Christmas season. They failed to ship out the amount of computers by Christmas that they had promised, but if anything, it actually spared a huge amount of people out there from having to buy the Atom computer, be disappointed, and having to drive back to the retail store that you got it from to get a full refund. Coleco would be saved, however, by the Cabbage Patch Dolls, which kept the company going for another 5 years before they declared bankruptcy in 1988. The problem here is that the Coleco just went in too hard. It went in too fast on a computer industry that was still fairly new to the mainstream consumer. It was seen as something exciting, a whole new world to discover, and the Atom computer was supposed to be the doorway to that new world. But I am sure that there were many out there that did buy it and never had any issues whatsoever with their units, and that's great. And lots of kids out there probably got their start learning how to program on this machine before they moved on to more successful counterparts, such as the IBM clones, the Amiga, the Apple, and Commodore 64. The Atom community is still strong, and there are still new programs and peripherals being created for this computer, one that captured the attention of so many back in the early 1980s. Now, anyone out there remember this computer? If so, what were your personal experiences with it? If not, do you agree that the Atom is considered by many to be one of the greatest computer failures of all time? Share with us all, and until next video, keep watching and keep gaming.
Ah, she's a beaut. You can't beat a Coleco. How many can I put you down for? A lot? Please say a lot. I need this.